This special 3-part series of Bonn Park is supported by HIP Developments, a real estate development company that goes beyond building real estate. HIP believes it's their job to help build cities, especially in Waterloo Region, which the company and many employees call home. Real city building requires collaborative effort and infrastructure for the human spirit, the kind of things that bring us all together and celebrate our inventiveness, diversity, and allow us to discover collective joy. Mel Brown was and still is part of that collective joy waiting to be discovered through this broadcast. Speaking of joy, HIP Development's president, Scott Higgins, recently published a remarkable new book, The Joy Experiments, starting a new conversation on city building. The book invites all of us to consider the importance of our communities, what they can do for us, and what we should be doing for our cities. Pick up your copy at thejoyexperiments.com. It's a joyful read, we promise. Legendary blues musician Mel Brown brought the sound of the Mississippi Delta to Waterloo Region. And although Mel himself is gone, his legacy lives on. In celebration of that legacy, the region was recently home to the inaugural Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium, and it happened May 27th through 29th, 2022, at the Jazz Room, Maxwell's Music House, Kitchener Public Library, and the Museum. Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sara Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward, and we are so honored to be sharing with you
Part 2 of our special 3-part series on the inaugural Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium. Here we go.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Can you do us a favor?
Can you please leave us a 5-star review, like or subscribe to our show, and share with your friends? We'd also love it if you followed us on social media.
We are a homegrown community project, and every bit helps.
O bara suayo heke shodara O monyale guaya mama Kenya woe.
That song is for Elaquent. Elaquent stands at the crossroads. And I think at this point, while we're welcoming the energy and the expertise and the love that Mel Brown represents, not just to the region, but to the world, that crossroads is really important. Because we always have an opportunity to do with our voice something exceptional or to do status quo. And I would argue that somebody like Mel Brown, who used his voice and passion and love and commitment to build music right here, the blues, music that held what we know as Black community members, both the pain and the love and the hardship and the joy, and put that into music, that helped to carry us through a number of very difficult things. And while we're here and we're talking about some of the difficulties of being racialized within musical spaces, we can't do that without thinking about the exceptionality of Black musicians like Mel Brown and so many others who taught us how to bring joy in the midst of all of the pain, who taught us how to ground ourselves, not in the pain, but in that joy. So sometimes when people listen to the blues, they think about those lyrics and they think, oh, things are so hard. But when I think about my own family, for instance, and the ways in which music carried us through the hardship, that's why I'm so grateful to people like Mel Brown. And that's why I'm so grateful to the folks like you that have come together to have some, I call it real talk, those hard conversations, so that we can celebrate where we can be. That's what brings us hope, right? By having those hard conversations, not pretending that they're not there, but grounding ourselves in love for each other and being so committed to loving each other through that hardship that we will call on the music to bring more of us into that conversation and to bring more of that hope, not just sort of in small little circles, but to the world. That's the power of music.
That was the voice of Dr. Laura May Lindo, former EDI director at Wilfrid Laurier University.
On May 28th, we were at Maxwell's Music House for the Mel Brown Symposium. Let's hear again from Dr. Lee Willingham about his relationship with Carlos Morgan.
Hi, I'm Lee Willingham, professor at the Faculty of Music at Wilfrid Laurier University. I coordinate the Master of Arts in Community Music program, as well as I direct a research center called the Laurier Center for Music in the Community. So Carlos applied to our MA program a few years ago without an undergraduate degree, but with a Juno Award in his pocket and with a ton of influence and musical experience. And so we assessed his capacity to do graduate level work, and we found a pathway for him to do it. And clearly it was a cultural shock for him, but he was all in and totally engaged. My colleague Gerard Yun spent hours with him, helping him get into academic reading and writing and that kind of thing. So all the way through that program, I was not sure of my relationship with Carlos. I clearly was the coordinator of the program. I had my doctorate. I'm a white guy that's, got a good job. And so I was the face of all the white privilege that he was challenging all through his time there. And I never felt like we ever connected. When this Mel Brown project started to emerge, I spoke to a few people in the Black community, both performers and scholars, who basically kicked me to the curb and said, "You have no business doing this. You're not the face of this project. You're the very example of institutional sustainability of Eurocentric dominance." So I had a talk with Carlos and said, I don't want to be out front in any of this project. I'm not going to be visible in any concerts. I will host the symposium, but it's just a matter of welcoming people and then letting it go. Would you be the face of this project? Would you be the artistic director, the curator? Would you take on the responsibility of contracting the performers? He thought about it and he said yes. So at that time then, I think he felt empowered. He made decisions. He didn't have to check with me on everything. We had a budget, so I showed him the budget. You've got this much, you can work within this much. He was brilliant at that. And I think he's learned that I'm basically somebody that creates space with my privilege for him to function. And we've had some good talks. I mean, I hate the idea that white people in a university take on a saviorist role for Black people to say, "Come in, we've got you. There's a warm blanket of love here for you." On the other hand, the other end of that is white fragility. So somewhere in there, Carlos and I have connected, and I think it is what you said, Marshall, that it's about the mutual respect and the idea that when he's been given power and authority to do something, nobody cuts him down for that. And he lets me do my thing, which is sign the checks and schedule the venues.
The driving force behind the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium involves a group of musicians and scholars, including Dr. Lee Willingham and Carlos Morgan, whose aim is to highlight Mel Brown's music and influence in all its full richness and context. Let's hear from Carlos again.
Hopefully this will be the first of many Mel Brown music festivals. One of my dreams in life was to be a part of a festival like this. Though we understand that there's systemic anti-Black racism in institutions and education, in the music industry in Canada as a whole, I've always said this, that the Canadian music industry is rooted solely in white supremacy and racism. Hopefully this festival will again show that there are incredible, gifted, talented musicians within Waterloo Region, and it will hopefully continue to grow and to build and expand.
Now we're going to hear from Dr. Brent Hagerman of Wilfrid Laurier University. He was part of two really compelling roundtable discussions at the symposium, and he was also my editor at Echo Weekly, 20 years ago in 2002, Brent gave me my first writing opportunity to interview artists and musicians, and he's the one who gave me a chance and got my writing career started. So thank you, Brent.
Brent was also a guest on Bonn Park back on episode 31.
Here he is to shed some light on the Symposium, some memories of Mel Brown, and his discovery of blues music.
I'm Brent Hagerman, and I teach the history of rock in the Faculty of Music at Laurier. This sort of symposium and festival that's on the one hand celebrating the music of Mel Brown, the legacy of Mel Brown, the festival itself, celebrating black artists, contemporary black artists. And the symposium, the part that I'm doing in it, is really putting a spotlight on the legacy of Mel Brown in Kitchener-Waterloo. I saw Mel Brown quite a few times. I met him quite a few times. He used to play on, I seem to remember Wednesday nights. I'm not at various places. I think the first time I saw him was at Pop the Gator, which is his sort of first residency in town in the early 90s. He used to run a jam there. I think that was on Wednesdays. I was always too scared to get up at those jams, but I went and watched a bunch of them, and then he would often play around town, so I would see him quite a bit. He moved to other venues later on, the Red Pepper, Flying Dog, and things like that. So like a lot of music fans and musicians, I would have seen him several times. And I did have the opportunity to interview him one time for The Chord, which was the Wilfrid Laurier paper. Still is the Wilfrid Laurier paper. Yeah, so my brother's 4 years older than me. And I always listened to the music that he brought home. You know, he always brought home really cool stuff, and he had very diverse musical tastes. And when I was probably about 12, he started listening to Eric Clapton. He had Eric Clapton's Crossroads box set, I think it was. And that's, very blues-based, obviously. And the way my brother listened to music was he would listen to Eric Clapton, then he would trace back where these songs came from, and that a lot of those songs went back to Robert Johnson, because many of those songs are Robert Johnson songs. So then my brother got, Robert Johnson record, right? And so for me, that's just the way I learned to listen to music. It's like, if you like artist A, you find out who influenced them. And so that blues connection was made fairly early on, and I fell in love with Robert Johnson and rural blues, and moving on to Chicago blues and the Howling Wolves and Muddy Waters and people like that. And so I think, as a teenager, I tended to sort of listen to and to discover more contemporary styles of music alongside older forms of music. And that also, for me, also included a lot of folk music and, rural country music, bluegrass, and those kinds of things. Two things that I've kind of done is write books on reggae artists, and one is a book on Bob Marley, and one is a book on Yellowman. And this kind of experience of really delving deep into this research is something that I've really loved, and I started as a music journalist really at Echo in the early 2000s, Echo Weekly in Kitchener-Waterloo, and really loved interviewing artists, really loved writing articles about artists, and one of the main reasons I went back and did my PhD and focused on music was because I wanted to write a book on a reggae artist, actually. And so I ended up doing this, and this experience of kind of, spending a few years really kind of digging deep into an artist's legacy, their history, their music, is on the one hand really fun, and on the other hand, it's just really it's sort of this surreal experience where you try to go out and get as much of their music as possible, get as many articles and books that are written on them as possible, try to understand them from several people's points of view, and spend months and months and months kind of with your computer and with this music trying to piece together a narrative to help me and other people understand them, and I don't know, I think for me that's almost as cool of an experience as playing music, because that's probably the peak for me, and then writing about music and researching music is kind of right alongside that, I think.
Let's hear from Tennille Warren. They are currently the Equity and Inclusion Officer at the Waterloo Region District School Board and the publisher of Inside Waterloo, an independent media initiative that amplifies diverse voices and excluded stories in Waterloo Region.
My name is Tennille Warren. My pronouns are they and them. I identify as Black, non-binary, and queer. As Gerard said, I am the Equity and Inclusion Officer at the Waterloo District School Board. We'll see if that lasts after my statement. And I think about my own bicultural experience, my own bilingual experience, because I have to learn to speak a Canadian English. And that comes from this idea of when we talk about equity, diversity, inclusion, three terms that I absolutely hate, what we're really talking about is trying to find a nice way to say white supremacy, trying to find a nice way to say colonialism. And it very much centers the need to not disrupt the systems that are comfortable for the dominant identities, and whether we want to admit it or like it, or it makes us miserable, or it feels bad, or it hurts, or it causes fragility, the dominant identities are white. That is historically how it's played out. And that's not just about a social hierarchy, that is scientific racism, that's environmental racism. When you come here as a newcomer and you go through the settlement process, that settlement process, first of all, it's settlement. Right, it's called settlement. And I'm just thinking to myself, how are we going to decolonize space and give land back and reconcile? We have an entire ministry called settlement. Like we're still dealing with the term settlement. And so we're still bringing in people to settle. And within that, we have this birth of diversity, multiculturalism. You talk about Toronto as the most multicultural place in the world, because it is. But when we think about how that multiculturalism has come to be, it has come to be because of the global impact of white supremacy. The world is not diverse. Cities like Toronto or Kitchener, which diversity has ballooned in the 5 years I've been here. It is not a diversity that's because everybody said, oh, we're gonna come and we're all gonna be here. No, it's a diversity because of an ongoing displacement in society. And so we have to think about that, is that when we're using these terminologies, and especially the emphasis on diversity, a lot of principals say, this is a diverse school. Well, what else is going to be? The people who live, you didn't go bring all the diverse people. They live in the neighborhood, that's their catchment, to show up at your school. Nothing special has happened here. But the diversity that we praise Canada for is a result of ongoing impact of white supremacist displacement around the world. It's not people just getting up and leaving and say, I want to see what's over there. It's people who are forced to leave because of an ongoing violence that we have almost romanticized. And in that romanticizing of that, we are replicating those harms in this space, but we don't see it the same way, because even though we open the textbook, there are only 13 pages on Black history in the standard grade 10 curriculum book. We look outside and say, we can't be doing such a bad job, because look at all these diverse people who have come here through war and violence and refugee crises. We're a diverse place. We have to reframe that, or we're not going to move forward.
Wow. Wow.
Marshall and I were incredibly moved by keynote speaker and spoken word artist Dr. Afua Cooper of Dalhousie University. Let's take you into the symposium.
Dr. Afua Cooper is in Dalhousie University in Halifax. I just want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Cooper. Killam Research Chair of Black History and African Diaspora Studies. She's a visiting scholar at the Charles Warren Center for Studies in American History at Harvard University. She's the principal investigator of a Black People's History of Canada, and at Dalhousie she's cross-appointed to departments of history, sociology, and social anthropology, Faculty of Graduate Studies, Gender and Women's Studies. I'm surprised you're not in the music department, Afua, but you're busy enough. Dr. Cooper was the recipient of the Dalhousie's President's Award for the Advancement of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity 2021. She's Canada's representative at UNESCO in the International Scientific Committee for the Slave Route Project. She's the Portia White Prize winner of 2020. She's the Poet Laureate Emerita from the Halifax Regional Municipality. That's page 1. She's the founder and past president of the Black Canadian Studies Association. She's the chair of the Lord Dalhousie Scholarly Panel on Slavery and Race. She's the lead author on the report on Lord Dalhousie's History of Slavery and Race 2019, and she's the founder of the Dalhousie Black Faculty and Staff Caucus. Her research interests are African Canadian studies with specific regard to the period of enslavement and emancipation in the 18th and 19th century Canada and Black Atlantic, Africa, Nova Scotian history, political consciousness, community building and culture, slavery's aftermath, Black Youth Studies. She founded the Black Canadian Studies Association, which she currently chairs. We're going to go back a few years now. While teaching high school at Bickford Park in Toronto, Afua began to perform her poetry at a variety of Toronto's spoken word spaces. Shortly thereafter, Cooper joined the Guyap Rhythm Drummers as a resident poet and percussionist, touring Canada with a brand of poetry infused with womanist perspectives and contemporary social commentary. Womanism, I note, while similar to feminism, designates a movement that arose in response to racial and gender-based oppression experienced by women of color. Her first book of poetry, Breaking Chains, was published in 1983, concurrent with her enrollment in the African Studies and Women's Studies program at the University of Toronto. That was just page 2. I'm going to stop. Would you warmly welcome Dr. Afua Cooper?
Thank you, Lee, for such a warm introduction. I am thrilled and I'm honored to be part of the Mel Brown Festival. And thank you also for creating this honor for Mel Brown. Truly, he deserves it and more. A part of my presentation to honor my African ancestors. I won't do it now because Laura did it, but you know, they died, they crossed the Middle Passage, they were brutalized, and somehow somebody survived that I could be here. I often think of it. I said someone survived the crossing of that ocean, someone survived the brutality in the homes of the enslaver on the plantation, and so here I am. And that to me is a miracle because it could have been otherwise. In my research, as I do research on Black history and African Canadian history in particular, you come upon these nuggets, and you often find them in things like runaway ads. You know, enslaved people would run away, and their owners, their masters, enslavers, slaveholders would place an ad in the newspaper. Runaway so-and-so, 5 feet 7 inches high, and they would describe what kind of clothes they were wearing, and perhaps they're going to a port and may jump on a ship for somewhere, and if apprehended, they will be lodged in His Majesty's jail. But there's sometimes in some of these ads, there's this little nugget for, what's it a nugget? It says something like, and he plays the violin. And I'm thinking, aha, and he plays the violin. May attempt to pass off himself as a free man, that sort of thing. And he plays the violin tells me that this person is a musician. This person probably creates joy wherever he is. He plays the music on the weekend. In these ads and in narratives and you know, wills of enslavers, they will speak to the musical skills of their enslaved property. So-and-so has a fine voice, or so-and-so, you know, goes about the neighborhood with a bunch of other singers, and they would sing. Many of the enslaved people who were born in Africa and who you know, were old enough, let's say they were 12 or 15 when they made that tragic journey across the Atlantic, were already steeped in their culture. Some of them were already musicians, drummers. So when they came to this part of the world, I mean, perhaps after they got over the shock, because enslavement is a thing that shocks the body, when they got over that and started having children and producing a new generation, they began to engage in musical culture. We know without a shadow of a doubt that the blues and jazz, we can pinpoint exactly where in Africa it came from, in Mali. We know that now. We also know we talk about Congo Square in Louisiana, where jazz sort of started up, or blues in the Mississippi Delta. But we, for jazz, you know, we also go to Haiti and we also go to Cuba. The Congo Square situation started happening, you know, earlier on when you had enslaved Haitians leaving Haiti with their owners during and after the Haitian Revolution to Louisiana, for example, and some who stopped in Cuba and then went over to Louisiana. So the beginning of this culture, started in slavery. And for us in Canada, where you are in, the Kitchener Waterloo region, it was a site of settlement for Underground Railroad travelers. And they too brought their musical culture with them. The creation of an indigenous poetry that had long roots, way before I was born, but certainly by the 60s, 70s, 80s, it had come into its own, and that's the poetry that we call dub poetry. And I'm ear to that tradition. That's how I came up as a young person and engaging in poetry. Was through people like the DJs, U-Roy, Big Youth, I-Roy, others who began to combine words, the spoken word, with music. Sure, many of them worked with musicians, which I did for a time in my life, but others, and I experimented with that and still do, use their own voice and their own body with the word, the sounds. We call it the word sounds, to create the spoken word. And so I'm going to read some of my poems for you this afternoon as part of my contribution to this festival. Thank you very much. The poem is called Child of Mine. It's subtitled Some Black Loyalists, Infants and Babies Listed in General Guy Carleton's Book of Negroes, 1783. So when those Black Loyalists who had fought for the British in 1783 were leaving New York port, the Americans were down on them to capture them and re-enslave them. And Guy Carleton, who was commander of the British forces in North America, he said, well, we had promised those men and their families who fought for us their freedom. And so he commanded his subordinates to do this register. Everybody who goes on a ship bound for Eastern Canada, their names must be recorded. So I'm looking through the register and I see children, but some of the children have no names. They're like Child of Venus. And so I just went through and wrote this poem. I remember those babies, some of them were like 6 months old. The book will say, Child of Venus, 6 months old, born behind British lines. And so they were born in freedom. Child of Venus, child of Sarah, child of Hagar, child of Chloe, child of Peggy, child of Patty, child of Dinah, child of Thomas, child of Betsy, child of Mary, child of Guinea, child of Few, child of Prince, child of Abigail, child of Warner, child of Cooper, child of Allen, child of Violet, child of David, child of Westcott, child of Willoughby, child of Effie, child of Caesar, child of Century, child of Isabella, child of Lucinda, child of Jupiter, child of Gambia, child of Campbell, child of Johnson, child of Watson, child of Williams, child of Bing, child of Tynes, oh dear, sweet child of mine. Thank you.
After Dr. Cooper's presentation, we took a moment to speak with Betty Ann Keller.
My name is Betty Ann Keller, and I produced a film called Rock This Town, which is a social history of the music business here in Waterloo Region, and a bit of a challenge to folks to understand and appreciate the value of live music in the cultural ecosystem in our community. It's exciting for me because live music has always been very close to my heart in terms of my personal experiences, and it's wonderful to be able to join with others and find your tribe and celebrate the music that's coming off the stage. There's nothing like it, and with the summer coming and the festival season starting, there's going to be so many opportunities to experience music and within community, which is what it's all about for me. I really believe that when people come together and have an emotional experience together in engagement with the arts, that it's a game changer for communities. It creates a sense of belonging, and the Mel Brown Festival and Symposium is a fantastic example of how music has been a tool to leverage the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm excited to be here today and to meet some new people and engage with old friends, and can't wait to see what's going to happen next.
So we've just heard the Black Youth Music Showcase facilitated by John Corbin at Maxwell's, which we'll get more into in part 3 of this series.
We talked to Sam Navi, creator of Tri-City Hip Hop, and he's also the owner of Full Circle Foods. He shared with us some great insight into emerging youth in music.
And what's fun is you can hear John Corbin's beats in the background here.
We're here at Maxwell's Music House. I'm Sam Navi, curator of TriCityHipHop.com. I'm a local hip-hop artist, and we just heard John Corbin say that hip-hop is power, and I think that's so true. Hip-hop is a way that marginalized communities have been able to take back power, speak truth to power. It's a very political genre, and it's a very personal genre. And I think what hip-hop does best is merge those two realities. So you have things going on in your life that you're connecting to the bigger picture, but you've also got your raw emotion coming through. And hip-hop is a great avenue for that, where you're really able to say what's on your mind, what's on your heart, and what's true to you, what's real to you. We just heard some amazing truths from high school students that went through the workshop with John Corbin, and we're going to see a lot more of that tonight at the Kitchener Public Library when we've got our Emerging Artist Showcase. There were a lot of influential hip-hop acts that came through Kitchener-Waterloo in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of grassroots hip-hop that was happening here at that time too. I have been part of a project documenting hip-hop culture in Waterloo Region, and it was started a couple years ago as part of a Waterloo Region Arts Fund grant, but I've been talking with DJs who were active in the scene in the late 80s, and there were a lot of venues that would host those acts. Sadly, a lot of them have changed or are no longer in existence, but where we are right now, actually, Maxwell's has always been a great supporter. We have wonderful homegrown talent like Shad, who just put out an incredible album, and he came through Laurier and was supported by places like the radio station, the Beat, as well as independent music media like the Echo, and we need to remember what it takes to build a culture around music. Right now we have a lot of artists that are lacking that kind of institutional support. There's not the same alternative weekly publications that will cover people who want to go out to see local music every weekend. And so there's still a ton of talent in this region. There's artists like Young Lungs, like Dom Valley, like 347 Aiden, who was recently nominated for 2 Juno Awards, that are from Waterloo Region and that are finding a lot of success online. What I'm trying to do with Tri-City Hip Hop and what we're trying to do with events like the Mel Brown Festival is bring that real world support for those artists and make sure that people in this city are able to build up and lift up artists that are essentially our neighbors. So one of the very special things that's happening tonight as part of the Saturday night Mel Brown Festival show is we're actually having it at the Kitchener Library. And having the library as a venue is a concept that when you tell people that this hip hop and R&B show is happening at the library, their eyebrows go up, they're curious, and they're not quite sure what to expect. But I was there this morning, they're setting the stage up, they've completely transformed this front lobby with huge ceiling to floor glass walls into a really, really fantastic concert venue. And I just have to give a big thank you to Nathan Stretch and everybody at the Kitchener Library because they've been our hosts for this festival, for this night of the festival, and they've been part of the creative process the whole way. So we have this Emerging Youth Showcase, and then we also continue the night with Ekhaya, Roots music. We also have the Glen Murray and the Mojo Train with some more blues, and then we're finishing off the night with an incredible performer. She just won the Juno Award for Best Rap Album, first woman to do so. And a couple years ago, she also won the Polaris Prize, first hip-hop artist to do so. We have Haviah Mighty closing out the night at the library. And we're just so grateful to get an artist whose star is on the rise in such a spectacular way to be opening this idea of Kitchener Public Library as a music venue. And once people step in the door, they're going to realize the power that space can have, and it's going to feel just right, you know.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, fuck it up. These niggas mad cause I run it up. They running their mouths while I'm serving cups. I ain't talking about drugs. I've been smoking blunts for like 5 years. No one noticed. They think I'm fine cause I'm focused. In my head I'm so scared I'm gonna blow this. I wrestle with demons. They tell me to smoke this, and of course I comply. I ain't got too many reasons why. Planet Friday, my niggas gon' die. Can't deny, so I'm not gonna lie. I feel like, you know, I done spent my life trying to be a stunner. Yeah, and that's got me doing things I don't know if I wanna. Like, I done spent my life trying to be a stunner. Yeah, that's got me doing things I don't know if I wanna, but at least I'm not a fake nigga. Not a smile on your face, nigga. Wouldn't change a damn thing, nigga. Cause I don't fuck with fake niggas, yeah. At least I'm not a fake nigga. Not a smile on your face, nigga. Wouldn't change a damn thing, would you? Cause I don't fuck with fake niggas. No, not me.
Yeah, I don't like no fake niggas. I can never accept no fate with them. Couldn't even be in this place with them.
So we just heard a piece of music from artist Quinton Barnes, and we'll be talking to him in a bit. But we walked into the Kitchener Public Library on the evening of Saturday, May 28th. Upon entering the reading lounge, which is a space I normally use for quiet reflection, reading, maybe drinking a coffee, letting the sun come in, this was a full-on, ready-to-go concert venue.
Yeah, nobody was shushed this evening. It was a night of blues, rock and funk, world Afro reggae, and hip-hop. So it kicks off with an Emergent artist showcase. And as this amazing night built, it featured artists like Glenn Murray and the Mojo Train, Ekhaya, and then the headliner, Haviah Mighty.
Kicking us off tonight is the wonderfully talented DJ, Elaquent. Give it up for Elaquent.
We caught up with DJ Elaquent and told him we absolutely loved his set.
Appreciate that. All right, what's up? My name is Elaquent. I am a beat maker, producer, whatever you want to call it. I hail from Guelph, Ontario. Never forget where I came from. And we're out here, Kitchener Public Library. There's tales for sure. I mean, I came up the same way a lot of aspiring rap producers, you try to make beats for an artist, and at some point early in my career, I kind of got tired of trying to sort of do what other people wanted me to do as far as the sound, so I was really drawn to and influenced by the Los Angeles beat making community, and they took a very more experimental sort of attitude towards it. So, I don't feel bound by structure, and I like to kind of, build up to a crescendo. And, it's hard to sort of carry a song without vocals necessarily. So, you just have to be a little more interesting and, try different things. As I promise, I do want to actually, look at the crowd and engage, but the truth is, when I'm up there, and I really just try to get lost in what I do, and in the moment, and then sometimes I don't realize, oh crap, I haven't actually looked up at anyone in the last minute or so. So that's usually what it is. I'm trying to get better at it, but it's usually just me getting lost. As far as the stage performance, I use a Roland SP404 Mark II. That's like the newest one that just came out. And without sounding too much like a nerd, basically I put my sounds into the little box and I can trigger them and utilize effects and so forth, and I can sort of blend and mix things into another. So I just got this piece a couple months ago, but you know, in some of my other sets, or you know, they tell me I got 45 minutes as opposed to 20 or so. Sometimes I'll actually get up there and do some live beat making, or I'll put like a drum loop on and I'll just trigger the samples and do some fun stuff there. So, but everything is always a work in progress.
Wanna live great. Yeah, I just wanna live great. Yeah, I just wanna never stress and never fight.
We just saw a fantastic show performed by Muhleak, and we're here with him backstage now.
Yes, Muhleak. I shared the stage with 23 Dreams. I mean, he's more of a rapper. He's my engineer too, to be honest. He do everything. But yeah, like, we're performing. I just dropped a tape called In It to Win It. I make my art, you know, I work hard on my music, right? So hopefully it's nice to see it pay off every now and then, you know? I love performing. Like, I haven't performed in like 2 years, to be honest.
At this point here, we refer to a moment of the show where a ceiling tile actually fell down. Nobody was hurt or anything, but a ceiling tile in the venue actually came down.
Yeah, he blew the roof off the place.
I didn't even know until they showed me it, to be honest. Like, that's like jokes. No, but hopefully I can do that every show. What do you mean? Like, that's perfect, you know?
Damn, these niggas mad, no they can never be where I'm at. I be checking these niggas, they throw it back, goddamn. I'm a 5-star nigga with a tempo.
Sarah and I arrived quite early to the show at the KPL, and I got to hear Quinton Barnes' sound check, and after hearing him, I thought, wow, I can't wait for this set list, and he really delivered something special. But before he even hit the stage, he was up there supporting all the other acts, just dancing and grooving right in the front row and having the time of his life, and it looked that way the whole evening. So we caught up with him backstage after his show.
All right, my name is Quentin Barnes. I've been working on an album for the past year and a half called For the Love of Drugs, all by myself, and it's coming out this fall. To finally be able to play the set live and see how people's reception is going to be is like, it's a relief to see that they responded well, you know? Well, actually, I'll speak about this one in particular because it just happened. I got on, I was nervous as hell, and then I was like, no, this is my music, I'm going to be in tune with it, I'm just going to perform as I would in my shower. You know? What we think
exactly,
right? Yeah. I'm like, pretend this is a shower and everyone is just watching. So actually, the songs start from, usually I start from the instrumental first. So I'll just go in and feel the need to create like an instrumental, and I'll go in and make it, and then I'll kind of sit with it and see what emotions it's inspiring in me, and then I will write something based off of that. I spent a lot of time in the library because I grew up in Kitchener, I was born here. So I spent all my time in the library. So being able to come here and perform the music, it feels, it's special. It's more than just a library show. It's like I grew up here, I gained knowledge here, I found some of my favorite books here, and now I'm coming back and sort of giving back, it feels like. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants the music, but I'm giving it anyways. Yeah, right?
Damn, these niggas mad, no they can never be where I'm at. I be hating these niggas that hit me back, goddamn. I'm a 5-star nigga with a tempo. Came the fuck of this bitch with a new flow. Gotta feel I done earned something more, cause ain't nothing working here no more. Yeah, I got voices in my head.
So we ran into a lot of people we haven't seen in a while. Here's the founder of KW Junk Music and community musician Mary Abdel Malik Neal, and also local writer and artist Roshan James.
I'm Mary Abdelmalik Neal. I'm a community musician here in KW. I just recently released a record called I'm Who I Am, and I'm here because I'm full support of the Mel Brown Symposium and what Laurier is trying to do here, so I'm very excited to be here. It's been a long time, a pandemic. We've seen a lot of decline in our indie music scene here in KW, and having a concert and having Symposium like this for this weekend and this concert is just like that revitalization that really kind of like hopefully is the jumping point for us to really start building more and more stuff. Like we've lost a number of really great music venues here, and hopefully this is just like a way of showing how community spaces like our libraries and working with our post-secondary institutions, we can all come together and really build it back up in this town.
So I'm Roshan James. I'm a local artist and poet, musician maybe even, maybe one day. So we're here to see Haviah Mighty perform. Ekhaya is also performing, which is amazing, so awesome local talent. The first time being out in a long time for us, so this is like a great first date night for Patrick and I, and we're super, super stoked to be here. I feel like this library in particular has always looked to do things a little bit differently.
Before the show even started, we saw KPL's Matt McKinnon working hard running around.
I don't know what I can answer.
Start with introducing
Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt McKinnon. I'm the manager of events at Kitchener Public Library. Yeah, we're really proud of our reading lounge space. It's one of the highlights of the Central Libraries, and it's extra special when we can turn it around for special concerts like this one. It takes a lot of effort in that, but it's a really wonderful experience in the space, just in terms of sound, and to see your local library turned into like a fun performance hall every once in a while. The part of the working at a library is being accessible to the community at large. So we meet you, sort of where you are at. And having concerts like this in the space, as well as our regular library programming, where we highlight all sorts of local artists and musicians. It's really great and sort of rewarding for us, and to put it out there in the community, and be a part of the community and contribute in this way. We try to get rid of the notion that libraries are these musty old spaces with just being shushed in that. They're very active living spaces, and as you said, that's great. We have a wonderful collection here, but when you have a concert on, it makes for great acoustics as well. So which is sort of a bonus of working at a library and hosting a concert.
Mid-show, we stopped by the Hefner studio. Here we talked with Nathan Stretch and Mary Chevreau.
Hi, I'm Mary Chevreau. I'm the CEO of the Kitchener Public Library.
And I'm Nathan Stretch, and I'm the division manager of community development.
And we are here tonight for this amazing evening to celebrate Mel Brown, the Mel Brown Festival, and listen to the most incredible artists sing and perform in our beautiful library, in the lounge, which has been transformed into this incredible performance venue.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull any punches. Like, we're here at the show, and it's unreal. We got the books lit up, we got the lights off in the main lounge, and it's glorious. Before I worked here at the library, I had the honor to come and see Jim Cuddy play on the stage in the main space, and it really inspired me. I didn't think that the library could do this, but also as a musician, I've been in many mid-sized venues, and I thought, this is a special place, a special venue. And since I started working here, it just felt inevitable that we would do it again, that we would build on that beautiful experience.
Just to sort of follow what Nathan was saying, really, we're all about community, and we're all about providing space for everybody in our community and outside of our community to make sure everyone is welcome. But we're also about busting perceptions. This library in particular is about breaking down those perceptions of what a library is and what we mean to everybody within our community. We aren't that staid. Sure, we are all about literacy. Sure, we have books in our library, but we are much more than that. As we're standing in one of our smaller recording studios, we're all about creating an opportunity for people to learn, to create, to grow, and be people that they might not be able to be otherwise.
Well, I'm here for a year and building off of a legacy of events people and librarians and Mary and leadership who have done an amazing job of platforming artists just before they peak. Like, just a preternatural ability to find those up-and-coming artists and bring them into the library early before they kind of hit the stratosphere. So this is another example of catching lightning in a bottle, where Haviah Mighty is coming to the library pre her Juno win. We were fans of her in the space. Carlos Morgan did an unreal job putting together this lineup, but he also took our suggestion and reached out to Haviah Mighty. And since we booked her, she put out a single with Shad, like she won the Juno. for the first woman to ever win the rap album or EP of the year. And she's just continued to skyrocket. So we are so excited to have her here at this stage of the game. Maybe we'll never see her again. Like, she may just be like far gone, but we're so excited to have her. And she's, you know, she's lovely. She's amazing.
She's so warm.
Sound check was transcendent. Yeah.
After Glenn Murray and the Mojo Train's performance, we have a really heartwarming conversation with him backstage.
My name's Glenn Murray, and I'm with Glenn Murray and the Mojo Train. And we love to play live. We're a mix of blues, rock, reggae, funk. We try to fuse it all together. Some of them are distinct that way, but our live sort of mission is to like just take every show to like the highest level as we can, and a lot of live interplay with the band is our goal. So we never try to play anything the same way. So that's sort of one of our things that we like to do. It was honestly jaw-dropping. Like, we came in for sound check, and you know, when you hear you're playing at the library, you get that like expectation of what a library is going to be, right? So I wasn't even sure how big it would be, and then we walked in and we were all just like, wow. Like, that's the only way to describe it. It's a huge wow factor. The stage was epic. The sound crew was amazing. Like, this is just it's a world-class festival and treatment. Like, from the beginning of like talking to Carlos to getting here to everything. It's just been unbelievable, man. It's a role model of how festivals should be, like where you as an artist feel really valued, right? And then, you know, it allows you to go up there and do that, like to go full bore like that, because you really had nothing to think about. Lee was my professor at Laurier for the community music program, and that's where I met him. And it was through a friend of mine, Don Ellis Mobbs, who was in the program before me. And so yeah, I remember everything. Like when I first met Lee, like it was pretty overwhelming because I hadn't been to university, and it was on my like bucket list to do, and it was nerve-wracking. But I remember he always says, I don't remember himself saying this, but he said to me at the end, like, you got to be brave, brash, and bold, or you won't get anywhere here or in your music. And it changed the way I approach things. So it was an epiphany moment. And there was a lot of them throughout the course. It really did change my life, like open up a lot of doors, and yeah. So he's a huge influence and a friend. We become friends, which is an added bonus.
So Glenn, I think I mentioned to you before that Carlos was in the program and graduated. There's a way to get in our program through alternate admission, and that means if you can demonstrate some kind of life experience that's an equivalency to an undergrad degree. And so it's up to them to prove that, right? So Glenn, our first meeting, he's sitting beside my desk, and he whips out 3 or 4 books that he's written on bullying in the classroom, right? And they were illustrated books, they were classroom resources. And how did you do that? He goes, well, because that's my passion right now. Say My Name was your thing, and you were dealing with classroom bullying, your school bullying. I said, well, you're writing books. You can come to our program. And then I found out more about it. But so he's been a shining star, you know, as he carries that vision of equity and in the invitation, the hospitality of making music together. So one of my favorite guys.
We asked Glenn to tell us a bit more about those children's books he created.
There are one's called Songs in the Key of Character, and it's all about like teaching children about like, you know, equity and bullying through songs and activities. And then another one was Character Matters, and it was like all these different activities like where kids, and it was based on the curriculum where the whole idea was like open and go for teachers, right? So it was just doing like through art and music and trying to get kids like thinking outside the box, but the overarching message of all of it was to think of each other first, right? So that's kind of been like the mandate of like when I'm working with schools is it's not the end product, it's not like the art at the end of it, it's what you do along the way. And that's been amazing, like to see how kids, some of them have never even heard this before, right? Like I worked with this drum group at a school in Newmarket, and I'm teaching them respect, right? So the perspective I'm teaching them is like you have to learn to love yourself first, or you'll never be able to respect yourself. So we start each class like we put our hand on our hearts and just say, send yourself some love right now. So this kid turned to me and he goes, I've never heard that before. And he's in grade 5. And I'm like, you've never heard that you should love yourself first. Like, that's amazing to me. But it makes sense because, you're taught that's selfish. But, it's so cool when you present this stuff to kids, how they just open to it and embrace it. So that's been the sort of the new path for me, is like, working on wellness and healing and starting with yourself. So it's been cool. But yeah, we were really excited to go up there. Yeah, it's overwhelming. I never take a thing like this for granted because we don't often get to play on a large stage with full production like that, with a room full of people. Like, so happy to see you. So yeah, it's gonna sit with me for a while. It's amazing.
All you peoples of the world, all you who live with the earth, all you who know you are the earth, you are of the great mother. We must open their eyes. We must make them see. Show them how we live and how it ought to be. A change that is promised tomorrow is a change that will never come. It is like a white cloud that brings no rain, a false dawn in the middle of a terrible nightmare. How long do we have to wait? How far do we still have to go before we reach that hidden door? Must we continue to carry the load?
The Ekhaya performance was so incredible. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this. The energy was so high, both on stage and in the room. And it couldn't have been more like a synergy between a band and the audience that night. It was so awesome, and we had a chance to catch up with them after the show.
My name is Teacher Ona Ekhaya. I'm with the Ekhaya World Band. I'm used to coming to the library to read, not necessarily to. But this is like, it feels like the perfect place to have something like this because it brings so much beautiful energy and such a beautiful feel. And to use the space to bring people together is just amazing. And just playing this festival for the Mel Brown Festival is amazing. I watched Mel Brown play, and that was the first time I really understood what blues was all about. I used to just listen to it and in passing, but when I saw Mel playing on stage, I was like, whoa. I had to go back and find all the blues catalogs and start listening to it. I love the blues now. So just I'm into Mel. When I'm off stage, I'm normally pretty quiet. So when I go on stage, it's like the energy that I get coming from everybody that's dancing, and you can see the happiness, and that just drives me to a different level because it's a shared happiness, and there's nothing better than just being in a space where you feel the energy is about, I'm just here to enjoy, and everybody is enjoying themselves. To be honest, if we play first, if we play last, it's exactly the same, whether there are 2 people or 1,000. Because when we walk on stage, it's not just, we are not trying to entertain, in all honesty. We are playing there because we actually enjoy playing music. So when we get the opportunity to play it and then share it with everybody else, it's just a bonus. But we're gonna enjoy what we do on stage, whether there's 1 person or there's 1,000.
You want my freedom.
I'll spice it up. I've been so hot cause I'm the pilot, son. Them shorties piling up. You wanna be the runner up or you gon' tighten up. Listen, learn to roll a blunt for me and light it up. You the best, better own your block. Book your man and your girl gon' fly. Yeah, we go cause the world don't stop. Come on, baby, better earn those stars.
It what's going on? It's Haviah Mighty. Just hopped off the stage at the Kitchener Public Library for the Mel Brown Music Festival. I think it's the first one, right? Absolutely incredible. I'm so excited to have headlined this. I can barely hear out of one ear, so that should tell you how amazing the set was. It was a lot of fun. Kitchener always comes with the energy. I didn't know what to expect coming to perform at the library, but I mean, it's a real venue in here. Full packed room, and it was great to come fresh off of the Junos and have a little 2-week break, and then kind of come back. It wasn't even 2 weeks, right? Have a little break, and then come back to the stage here in Kitchener, and just really rock out on stage for this festival. It's been a good time. I saw the mural during the sound check earlier, and I was just like, wow, this looks really great. But I can only imagine for the audience what it looked like while the actual show was happening. For me, just seeing the crowd and how responsive they were, how engaged they were, the fact that they were singing along with the songs and just really with me. It just felt like a great moment. I'm asking everybody, are we having a good night? And everyone's like, yeah. That's the best feeling.
I've interviewed many recording artists over the years, but there was something really special about Sara and I getting to talk to Haviah Mighty. It was almost midnight, I think, after the show, and there was only a handful of people left in the KPL, and it was such a great feeling after that whole night of incredible music. And anyways, it's a night I won't ever forget.
Midnight might not seem late to most listeners, but for me and Marshall, it might as well be 3 a.m. We're early risers.
Yep.
During Haviah's performance with DJ Demwins, we saw some really beautiful moments. We saw Kitchener Public Library Community Development Manager Nathan Stretch dancing and singing along right up at the front. We saw a handshake between Haviah and Carlos Morgan at the side of the stage during the performance. And also, my 2 daughters and their friend were at the front of the stage losing their minds. Live music is back. They're dancing, they're jumping, they're singing along. And here's where we ask Haviah about what that feels like to perform in front of young people and inspire them.
It's amazing. I mean, I remember me being that person and not necessarily, seeing things that were so off the cuff in my time, So I feel like, it's really cool to be able to occupy space in a way where, I hope it looks different than, what it looked like when I was growing up. And I hope that it just creates a narrative that there's expression in so many different ways, and there's less boxes that we have to adhere to, less restrictions that we kind of have to be confined within. I hope that for them, they're just, feeling that expansion and, enjoying the moment as much as I'm sure I would have when I was a young one. It's hard to translate what it is translating as for somebody else, but it definitely feels like a very empowering thing to be able to not only be on the stage and talk about fun stuff, but also talk about impactful things and do it in a way where everybody in the room can be part of different communities but connect on this one message, or multiple different messages in these different songs. That's probably the best thing, is to take that moment and actually make a statement and then go back to partying. That's the best part.
I love it. So I go by the name of Haviah Mighty. It's my DJ Demwins. DJ Demwins. But right now I want to bring up a special guest. I feel like she's super talented. She looks a lot like me. In fact, we share the same last name. Omega Mighty, come on up here, yo.
Everybody have a good time.
Yeah. I had to, because we've been doing a little bit of hip hop, but I have a feeling, based on the previous acts, shout out all the previous acts killing the stage, you guys like a little reggae beats, Afro. Just a 1-2, right?
Just a 1-2.
Just a 1-2. All right.
That sounds like a 1-2.
Let's give them what they asked for. Why you acting so wishy-washy? Emptying my pockets like a washing machine. Stop telling yourself to run back to me, cause we both know this a nightmare. You acting real wishy-washy, cleaning up my pockets like a washing machine. Stop telling yourself to run back to me, cause we both know this a nightmare. I know you gon' disappear, cause even though you say you're real, you're insincere. All this time you probably didn't want me. Lauren and the Fugees, you be killing softly. So many times you tell me that you're really sorry, but all I really hear is that you're wishy-washy.
What a night at the Kitchener Public Library. Wow. Join us for episode 3 of the Mel Brown Music Festival and Symposium, where we'll be hearing from
John Corbin talking about the Black Youth Music Showcase.
And it starts in the writing sessions. We talk about being willing to be bad. We really have to abandon the idea of perfect performance. So over the 3 weeks, we've been sharing in progress, and so have I. Hey, I wrote this thing. I would like to share it with you. It is not perfect. Here's where I'd like to go with it. Performing in front of them and fumbling words to show you that that can happen.
We'll also visit the museum for the closing show, where we'll talk to Steve Strongman.
And I was very, very lucky to basically grow up listening to Mel, and he really took me under his wing like he did with so many people. He's so incredibly generous with his time. And I used to play with Mel from the time I was about 16 years old on, and I'm still, I'm a professional musician. That's what I do, and there's no way I'd be able to do it if it wasn't for Mel.
We'll talk to Errol Blackwood.
This is where I learned to play. My first time on a stage was in Woodstock, actually. But there was a band in Kitchener, and a guy named Jackson Jones, it was his band. And so I followed them all around. They couldn't get rid of me.
We get a few moments with Miss Angel Brown.
He played the same way in the backyard, on the riverbank house party, as he did on a big stage. Yeah. The music was, he put it out, and he gave 150%.
And we'll share a performance by the Waterloo Region Mass Choir and hear from their director, Darren Hamilton.
See you then.
You have been going through your storm.
Bonn Park is made possible with the support of the Kitchener Public Library and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation.
Our show is produced by Sarah Geidlinger
and Marshall Ward,
with audio engineering by Sarah Geidlinger.
Bonn Park's original music is by Alan Lung.